Hello friends, today's video is going to be another mental health improvement video, and today's topic is going to be rumination, and I'm not talking about the regurgitation of your food. This is something that I think we all struggle with. I think every single person deals with this, and I think we all know someone that might deal with it to a more extreme extent, or yourself might be dealing with it to an extreme extent. So let's dive right into it. So what is the definition of rumination? The definition of rumination is having constant and repetitive thoughts about something, typically a problem or situation, in a negative way. Rumination predominantly occurs among peers and loved ones. The issue with this is the people that you vent to the most end up being your best friends, your girlfriend, your wife, your husband, vice versa. So these are the people that end up hearing the most about your problems, or hearing the most about your minor problems that you've exacerbated to a high level that it doesn't need to be. Now, rumination doesn't just affect other people. The person that it affects the most is you. You might be thinking, while you're talking about rumination, why don't you give us some signs? How do I know I'm dealing with this? How do I even know I fall into that category? So, some signs of rumination are excessive thinking about a painful topic or behavior. So, that could be a stress, a trauma, concentration problems. You're constantly so tied up in these negative thoughts that, you're at work and you're finding yourself zoning out, or you're driving or a spouse is talking to you and you can't even focus because you're just so tied up in these. Loss of energy and motivation. It's going to, you're going to feel it physically, losing sleep, that type of thing. Rumination happens commonly before bed. Excessive talking about a painful topic. I know we just kind of talked about that, but we all have that friend, or you do it yourself, where you find in social settings the only thing you want to talk about is how bad your day was. You don't even want to talk about the good things. And that's kind of another one of the main points I want to drive is rumination just takes over your life, and you live this half glass full type of life. You're so pessimistic that before you know it, it's going to be kind of rearing its ugly head. And then loss of interest in usual activities. If you're constantly driving home negative thoughts into your mind, by the time your favorite time's the gym, you don't even want to be there because you're so mentally drained. And then excessive fatigue or excess sleeping, that's another one. I just kind of talked about that, where you can't focus at work because you're so fatigued because you didn't even get sleep. You can't shut your mind off because you've taken something from that happened at 9 a.m. and you've just ruminated it and exacerbated a problem. So by the time it's 9, 10 p.m., you just can't get your mind off it. Rumination also is very, very common with people with obsessive compulsive disorder, which is OCD. And the reason why is rumination feels like it serves the purpose of figuring out answers to obsessions. So when a stressor comes up, people with OCD are going to be all over that. And ruminating almost feels like a solution in the short term, where you start thinking, well, why did this happen? You think you're figuring it out, but in reality, you're just making things worse. But, I have a little bit of OCD myself, and I think we all do. And you just start to like, oh, well, yeah, this happened, and you think you're figuring it out, but you're not. What you really have to watch out for if you do have OCD is rumination is going to provoke and tend to draw more negative thoughts to, obsessional content, stuff that you really struggle to get your mind off of. People with OCD tend to really struggle in the work environment, with controlling how the day goes, controlling how people treat them, and ruminating on those things is only going to make it 10 times worse. So, when you have OCD, you already have a lot to deal with. You kind of have an uphill battle on a lot of things. Point in the video, you're like, okay, you've called me out 45 times. I'm dealing with a lot of these things or all of these things. When are you going to help me out, man? This is not fun. And that's what we'll do right now. So, an easy way to stop ruminating, or some tips. Number one is challenge the thought with facts. When these thoughts come up, these negative thoughts, really challenge them. Challenge yourself to say, okay, is this something I'm anxious about, or is this real? Is this something I need to address? And that's a start right there. Is let's address this. Let's make a game plan to take care of this rather than just thinking about it. Give yourself 10 minutes to ruminate and then stop. So I'll tell you a little story. This is something that my mom taught me about ruminating, And, I didn't know this at the time. This is before I went to college and got my psych degree and everything like that, was when I was playing traveling baseball in the summers in high school. And I was very competitive. I loved pitching. And I had a bad habit when I would get done pitching of ruminating. I would get in the car and I would just go on and on the way home about, my performance or the team or the coach or a certain player that we need to take out or whatever it was, my batting. My batting that day was bad. And I remember we were in Lewiston and we were playing the Cubs. And I had a okay game, and in the last inning, I threw a pitch right down the middle, and the guy took it yard, and I was upset. I never showed how upset I was on the mound. I was very stern, and I was very like poker face. I didn't want to be that player. Never threw my mitt down. And I remember I got back to the car, and I started going off. I should not have thrown that. I should have thrown an off-speed pitch to the outside. I should have thrown it lower. And I remember my mom looked at me, and she was like, Chris, you've got to stop this. What we're going to do is you have until the Lewiston Bridge, which is about 15 minutes from where we are, to get everything out about this game, and then you're going to stop. So you can tell me everything, you can complain as much as you want, but when we hit the bridge, you're done. So that's what I did. As from the time we left the field to the bridge, I'm going on about the coach, I'm going on about my pitching performance, I'm going on about how I should have practiced, more off-speed pitches so I felt more comfortable. I was going on about everything. And then when I hit that bridge, I felt like a relief. Like I felt like, okay, I can stop this. I can just move on with my day, and me and my mom can talk about something. So she really taught me a lesson there about how it's okay to talk about your problems, but eventually you have to stop. You've got to stop. Now, there's levels to this. You might be thinking, well, Chris, that's a baseball game. I'm dealing with divorce, or I'm dealing with, family death or a breakup or something like that. So that doesn't work for everything, but rumination tends to be about little things in the grand scheme. Now, if you are dealing with something that's a little more extreme than, a sporting event, like I was talking about with breakups or divorce or family death, the same principle can be applied with just more time. Give yourself more time. Time is one of the greatest healers. But at the same time, in the past, I remember I went through a breakup in college, and the same thing. I just kept ruminating about it to my mom every single day, and she finally was like, Chris, you've got to get a little frustrated with yourself and just start getting your life back together. And that's usually when the healing starts, is when you finally get so fed up with talking down to yourself and talking and putting these negative thoughts in your head over and over and over and start making the change and putting your foot down. That's when the healing begins. But you do have to allow yourself to heal. So that's kind of the point I wanted to make with that one. Another way to limit rumination is distracting yourself. Watching your favorite YouTube video, watching a movie, going to the gym, going out with your friends. When you can get distracted on other things that aren't what you're dealing with, I'm not saying to ignore what you're dealing with, but say like work stress. Instead of going right to the gym and talking, how was your day? Just say it was good. It was good. It was a little stressful. It was all right. Start talking about video games. Start talking about your training. Start talking about, your favorite movie. Just start like what you would call BS. Just start BS and distract yourself from the thing that you dealt with. And that way you don't attach on to that and start ruminating it. Another tip is taking action on the aspect of the problem that you can control or change. If you can't control it, then there's no point in ruminating about it. It's like at work. If a customer comes in and you work in retail and they're a complete jerk to you, you can't control that. But what you can control is your attitude for the rest of the day. Process it. Say, you know what? That guy was a jerkhead. I can't believe he came in and said that to me. But when you get in that car and you're heading to the gym or you're heading home, just process it. Is this something that I'm going to forget about in a day? Probably. We've all been yelled at. I've been yelled at. I've been cussed out at jobs and all that kind of thing. And I don't even really remember a lot of them. I remember it happened. Like, I remember those things have happened, but I don't really sit and ponder on them. And I can't control those things. You can't control other people. So if the thoughts that you're ruminating a lot of the time are due to other people or other people's decisions or behaviors that are affecting you, then you can't control that, and you've got to let it go. And you can control what you can control, which is your attitude, what you're doing, staying busy, healthy living habits is what you can control. Another tip is being present. Being stuck on an issue from your past is another thing that rumination loves. we love as humans to ruminate about things that we can't control. Just like I just said, it's like, I wish I would have done this with my, last relationship, or I wish I would have done this at this job, or I wish I wouldn't have bought this, or I wish I would have made this decision to influence this. So really practicing and grounding yourself and being and living in the present can really help a lot of these issues. Okay, hey, work was horrible, but now I'm at the gym. I'm at the gym and I get to do my favorite workout. I get to see my favorite people. I just have my favorite, caffeinated beverage. I get to have a good meal after this. I get to talk with my friends. I really love this, and just really focusing on being in the present, which I know is hard, but I think you can really do that. And one of the final tips I'll give you is journaling. Write down these things. Just get them out of your brain. Instead of calling up your mom or your sister or your brother, write these things down. If your boss yelled at you, get that book out when you get home. This piece of John, I can't believe you mother effer. Just start writing that down on paper, and that can sometimes be just as relieving, and less intrusive on other people than calling. Instead of sitting there and calling somebody, like, everybody has issues, right? Like, we're all dealing with our own things. Your mom is, your dad is, your grandma is, your girlfriend is. She has her own life. Your wife, your husband, he or she has their own life. And sometimes that can cause a lot of relationship issues when you just call and just start hammering people with how bad your day is, because they're trying to process how bad their day was to begin with, and then you're calling and exploding. So instead of that, maybe just get out that book, keep it in your car, get it out of your center console, and just start hammering down. Cuss as much as you want. I mean, just go crazy. And that can be really relieving for a lot of people. I know it has for me in the past. I was just looking through my journal that I had in college when I was going through a really rough breakup, and just honestly, it was very healing to read through it and be like, wow, I was very hopeful in this situation. I would write out how horrible my day was, and on the bottom, I would write out, like, this too shall pass, or better days ahead. I'm almost graduated. I can't wait to see what the future holds, and made me very proud of myself to read through that stuff. So I hope this video can help you guys, overcome rumination and overcome a lot of anxiety. It's something I've dealt with in the past. I currently deal with. I think we all deal with this because we as humans like to think about the things we can't control sometimes. So I really hope you can implement some of the tips I've put out for you guys, and maybe use some of the diagnosis stuff that I put in here to see if you are dealing with this, and then how to go about it. You can reach out to me on my Instagram at Topherolive, and yeah, hope this video helps. Have a great day.